In the previous episode, Hikari suddenly asked to break up with Rentaro. She made a painful decision to protect Rentaro from her overly affectionate mother. Rentaro struggled with his feelings of helplessness. All members of Rentaro's family, including Rentaro and all his girlfriends, vowed to bring Hikari back. Their love and the strength of their bonds are being tested. That night, Rentaro, Kurane, Shizuka, Neno, and Kusuri arrived at Hikari's house. They entered the house's yard by climbing over the fence. Kusuri, Neno, and Kurane were amazed by the sight of Hikari's luxurious house. Rentaro reminded everyone that security at this house was very tight, and they all needed to stay focused. Rentaro tried calling Hikari, but there was no answer, indicating that Hikari's phone was still confiscated by her mother. Rentaro took out a rubber ball and threw it towards Hikari's bedroom window, but his throw only hit the wall. Just as he was about to throw it again, the ball disappeared. Kurane walked to look for the rubber ball and found Hikari's cat playing with it. Kurane chased after the cat, but it ran quickly, causing Kurane and Kusuri to fall when they tried to catch it. Nano intercepted the cat and said she would give it a quick kick to disable it. However, Rentaro stopped her. Suddenly, they heard the sound of security guards, so they quickly hid behind a tree. The cat ran towards the security guard, who invited the cat to play and then went back inside the house. Nano said that if there were cats being taken care of in this house, it meant that the house had a pet door. The pet door was too small for them. Kurane asked if Kusuri had a shrinking potion, but Kusuri mentioned that it wasn't a shrinking potion, but a failed immortality potion. Nano took some pebbles and approached the door. They observed it, and soon after, the door opened. Kurane was amazed by it. Nano determined the location and type of key from the door's shape. Then her hand entered the pet door and launched the pebble at the right angle and speed to force the lock open. Rentaro approached Nano, noticing that her fingernails were split and bleeding. Promptly, Kurane took disinfectant and a bandage from Rentaro's bag. Kurane treated the wound and asked why Nano had done it. Nano had to use the maximum accuracy and speed of her nails. She did it not only to repay Hikari for the incident at the pool, but also to help Hikari. They entered the house, and suddenly a guard dog approached them. Rentaro signaled for them to run away immediately. They ran out and distanced themselves. Unfortunately, Shizuka was still inside with the large dog. Shizuka was so frightened that she couldn't stand. Just as Rentaro was about to shout to call Shizuka, Nano covered his mouth. She believed that Rentaro's loud voice would provoke the dog and alert the security guards. Shizuka felt helpless, thinking she couldn't help. But remembering Hikari's kindness and hospitality, she regained confidence to help Hikari. She remembered Rentaro's message that even if she wasn't sure she would succeed, the important thing was to do anything with whatever she had. Now all Shizuka could do was lie down and cry. The dog approached her and licked her cheek. The dog had a pure instinct to protect weaker animals like babies, even if they invaded their territory. Shizuka's extreme vulnerability overcame its territorial instinct, but the dog would be provoked when they re-entered the house. Nano suggested that Shizuka gouge out the dog's eyes, but Rentaro forbid any cruelty to Hikari's pets. Kusuri pulled out a sleeping potion that would instantly put any animal to sleep and threw it towards Shizuka. Kusuri instructed Shizuka to use the potion. Shizuka took the potion and drank it, immediately falling asleep. The dog also fell asleep after licking Shizuka's chin, which had been exposed to the potion. Kusuri woke Shizuka up with a neutralizing agent, and they all entered the house. They had arrived at a large door and opened it, revealing a very long corridor. Suddenly, Hikari's cat appeared, and soon after, the sound of security sensors was heard, causing security guards to quickly arrive. When the guards came, they only saw the cat in the corridor. The guards scolded the cat for repeatedly triggering the infrared beams here. They lured the cat with food and took it away. After the door closed, Rentaro and the others breathed a sigh of relief as they had been hiding behind that large door. Rentaro recalled the guards' conversation about the infrared sensors. Trying to pass the corridor without infrared goggles would surely fail. Kusuri took an envelope from her pocket and pulled out its contents. It was an infrared eye drop. Rentaro willingly offered to use it. The side effect of the drops was blindness to everything except infrared light. so Rentaro had to be careful. Kurane picked up the dropped envelope and examined it with Nano. Quickly, Kusuri snatched it back. Kurane asked Nano about the address written on the envelope in English. Nano said the address was for a foreign research team with a very large pharmaceutical laboratory. That research team was Kusuri's dream. The medicine was supposed to be delivered today. Kusuri had caused problems for Hikari with her invention, but Hikari still wanted to be Kusuri's friend. She was a good friend and far more important than the research team. Rentaro realized that everyone loved Hikari and wanted to help her. The effects of the infrared eye drops had taken effect, and they prepared to continue their mission. Rentaro saw so many infrared beams from bottom to top, impossible to pass even for Tom Cruise. Rentaro saw nothing but the infrared beams, and it seemed impossible for the beams to reach the ceiling because they appeared lower than the corridor's ceiling he remembered. Shizuka mentioned that there were luxurious chandeliers in the corridor. Rentaro understood that the beams couldn't be attached to the chandeliers. Climbing to the ceiling would be easier in a narrower room by climbing, but since the corridor was wider, it required two people with enough strength to work together. Unfortunately, apart from Rentaro, everyone else was a woman. Eventually, Kurane was chosen to work with Rentaro, considering her strength was greater than the others. Rentaro and Kurane were then tied so that their legs were each attached to one side of the wall. Their chests to heads pressed against each other and were tied together. They had to synchronize to successfully climb and pass the sensors to the end of the corridor. With a signal they both uttered, they began. Step by step, they had to stay in sync until they finally reached the highest sensor. They moved above the corridor while continuing to chant signals to maintain synchronization. After passing the chandeliers, Rentaro asked if Kurane was okay because her clothes felt smooth and slippery. What Rentaro felt was actually Kurane's stomach. He was right against Kurane's stomach, making Kurane unable to contain her discomfort. In short, they succeeded. Rentaro and Kurane continued their mission to go to Hikari's room and ask the others to hide and get ready to run. Upon arriving at Hikari's room, Kurane opened the door and saw Hikari crying while looking at their photo from the flower garden yesterday. The security alarm in Hikari's room went off. Hikari's mother had installed the alarm on Hikari's door to prevent her from escaping. Rentaro couldn't understand why her mother would do that to her own child. Hikari asked Rentaro and Kurane why they were here. Rentaro and Kurane wanted to take her away from this house. But it was too late. All the house guards had surrounded them outside Hikari's room. Hikari's mother came and asked what they were doing there. Rentaro couldn't see anything due to the infrared medication effect, but he recognized Hikari's mother's voice. Nano, Kusuri, and Shizuko waited behind the plants in the house's yard. Suddenly, a guard heard their commotion and shone his flashlight towards them. They hid and made cat noises to distract him. Hikari cried in her locked room, realizing that Rentaro would never give up on making her happy. Her mother would also never stop restraining her. Rentaro would always be bound to her and Hikari's mother. He might even sacrifice his life for Hikari. If all Hikari could do was make Rentaro unhappy, she wanted to break free from the shackles in her life. Meanwhile, Rentaro and Kurane knelt before Hikari's mother. This was their first meeting, and Mrs. Hikari introduced herself as Hanazono Hihari. Hihari restrained them because they sought something undesirable. She even threatened to cast them aside if they anger Hikari. Hihari inquired why Rentaro's eyes looked different, wondering if he possessed some special ability. Rentaro replied that he didn't have mystical or unique eyesight. Though Rentaro couldn't persuade Hikari directly, all he could do was seek her mother's blessing for their relationship. He promised to bring happiness to Hikari. Hihari questioned whether Rentaro believed sweet promises would change her mind. Rentaro insisted his words weren't mere empty promises. Hihari shared that she gave birth to Hikari when she was just 13 years old, while she was in the second year of junior high school. She did this because the person she loved fell gravely ill and was expected to die. She saw a memento, something to prove her existence. Hikari received the best medical care. Recollecting this made Hihari realize her own recklessness. Both she and Hikari shared a trait. Once they fell in love, they became blinded, unable to see clearly. They convinced themselves that love was the only path to happiness. In the past, Hihari felt profoundly alone. Since becoming a mother, she dedicated her life to raising Hikari. Naturally, she loved Hikari deeply, viewing her as a beacon of hope. However, Hikari could never replace her lost lover, nor could she fill the void he left. Since his passing, Hikari constantly questioned whether this was the happiness she sought, not wanting Hikari to experience the heart-wrenching regret she felt. But Hikari remained oblivious to this truth. Therefore, Hikari wanted to open Hikari's eyes before it was too late, to let her know that a fleeting romance would never bring lasting happiness. Hikari wasn't acting out of anger, but based on her own experiences. So Rentaro's sweet promises couldn't sway her decision. Tears streamed down Rentero's face. Kurana urged Rentero to persuade Hikari instead of being moved by her story. Rentero realized the trials both Hikari and Hikari had endured, vowing not to let Hikari regret anything, even if it cost him his life. Rentero's tears weakened the effects of a certain infrared drug, allowing him to see again. As Rentero and Hikari locked eyes, Hikari, who had been without her lover for 13 years and hadn't felt the sparks of love for 16 years, was once again confronted with the feelings she detested. Now, she asked Rentero to be her boyfriend.